Okay, let's get into this. We've been given a really unique stack of sources today. It's a blend of astrological transits and this very narrative StoryScope, all focused on a single day, December 19th, 2025.
It's a fascinating combination.
It is, and this deep dive, it's not just about reading a forecast. It's really about pulling out a playbook for a complete reset of your perspective, one that actually lasts.
It absolutely is. I mean, the sources lay out this incredible blueprint for embracing new paths, for aligning your energy toward goals that feel authentically yours.
Right, goals that need real courage, not just, going through the motions.
Exactly.
So the mission for this dive is, I think, pretty clear. We're following the arc that the source material lays out. It's this progression from optimism to obstacle to opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the core insight here, and it comes up again and again in the sources, is that new beginnings don't just give you a clean slate. They don't erase reality.
No, not at all. But they do offer a chance to approach that same reality in a totally different way.
And the power source for all this big reorientation, is the new moon in Sagittarius.
Right. The sources call this the energetic moment for a profound reset of our guiding story. I mean, we're talking about shedding those really heavy, inherited expectations.
The ones that were handed down to you.
Exactly. And finding the courage to finally live by beliefs you actually forged for yourself.
Which sounds incredibly expansive and exciting, which is, classic Sagittarius energy. But here's where the timing gets so critical, and this is a huge takeaway from the sources.
It's a very short window.
A very short window of that pure optimistic vision. Because once the moon moves into Capricorn later tonight, that whole expansive energy, it just shifts instantly.
It does. It moves from that hopeful Sagittarian exploration to something far more practical and enduring. The vision needs structure, and it needs it fast.
So if you miss that moment to plant the seed of authenticity,
then the Capricorn energy that follows might just end up reinforcing the old habits instead of building new foundations. That shift is the absolute crux of the day. It's what forces us to mature our optimism.
Okay, so let's follow the sources chronologically. They really walk us through the day's emotional arc, showing how the landscape shifts from this, warm, expansive feeling to a pretty sobering reality.
And then into opportunity. We start in the morning with the moon in Sagittarius conjunct Venus. And this is a genuinely warm, open-hearted transit. It speaks of affection, openness, a real desire for connection.
But the sources are really clear. This isn't just like fluffy affection.
Yeah.
They specifically talk about love with room to breathe.
Yes.
An energy that asks for relationships that honor freedom just as much as they honor intimacy.
It's a real challenge to the old idea that love means possession, This energy is about connection that's vibrant because of the space you allow within it.
It's the beauty found in possibility and what could be.
Right. And that requires a lightness and trust, not heavy demands.
That sounds beautiful, almost utopian. But the sources immediately inject this necessary dose of friction. Because by midday, we hit the moon square Saturn.
And that's the classic sobering note. This is where the obstacle, the hard reality, really shows up.
What does a square feel like in real terms?
Well, it's not gentle. It's a conflict. It's like two forces that both feel immovable, trying to operate at the same time, but in different ways. So for you, it's that moment when your big, expansive dream suddenly hits the budget.
Or the deadline. Or some limit you just weren't ready to admit was there.
Exactly. The source detail here is so vivid. It describes it as a feeling of restriction or disappointment. That awareness that what you want and what's actually available are, quote, not quite aligned.
It can feel heavy. Like a door closing.
Or just the realization that the grand dreams you had this morning are going to require a lot more maturity and patience than you thought.
I want to pause on that for a second. Why do the sources put this obstacle right in the middle of this big vision-setting new moon? Doesn't that just kill the optimism?
That's the brilliance of the timing, If the optimism was just allowed to run wild, it would lead to these unsustainable, kind of airy goals. The Saturn square is the gravitational pull.
Okay.
It forces you to define the real cost and the structure needed for the dream. If the dream can survive that midday reality check, then it's worth building. The friction is the whole point.
Understood. But if we don't manage that friction, that sudden check, the energy shifts again into the tonight phase, the Sagittarius moon square Neptune.
And if Saturn is restriction, Neptune is dissolution.
Yeah.
The edges start to blur. This is the temptation phase where you might feel confused or overly idealistic or just have this really strong urge to escape into a fantasy.
Anything to not face what Saturn just showed you?
Precisely, so you might ignore the budget and just decide the whole project is doomed, or, just go distract yourself with something that feels good right now but is ultimately fake comfort.
So the cycle is, optimism arrives, it hits a wall, and then you have a choice.
You either maturely address the wall or you fall into that escapist Neptunian haze. The synthesis is really clear. The day demands you hold on to the optimism while you integrate the hard truths.
Which brings us back to the main event, and what this new moon is actually asking of us. The sources really emphasize that despite those midday restrictions, the core of vision hope actually gets louder.
The opportunities are truly abundant, but only if we look past the discomfort.
And the invitation is, it's profound, to set intentions rooted in authenticity, vibrancy, and harmony. We're being told to aim higher than just routine or what looks good on the surface. The goal is meaning.
It's about setting an intention that really reverberates through your whole life, not just one that looks good on paper.
And the sources give these incredibly specific action items. They're not generic goal setting. They're focused on the internal shifts you need to make.
And the primary one, which I find so deeply resonant, is this. Stop pretending not to care about the things we deeply care about.
Wow, that is a massive mental hurdle for so many people. We pretend not to care as a self-protection mechanism, right? If you don't care, you can't be disappointed by the Saturn square.
Precisely. It's an armor we build against vulnerability. But the source material is suggesting that this armor is now actively throttling your growth. Releasing that pretense, just admitting to yourself what you genuinely want, that is the first brave step this new moon requires.
The sources also mention that clarity isn't just an inside job. They say we should watch for a sudden insight or an honest conversation that can just clear away that Neptune fog.
Yes, which means an external catalyst is possible. And crucially, this new moon energy is supported by some powerful structural forces.
Like what?
The moon is conjunct Venus and Juno. This highlights the integrity of our alliances, our partnerships, financial matters, creative projects. Juno represents commitment, so this reset is specifically designed to help you improve the contracts you hold.
Both the legal ones and the interpersonal ones.
Exactly. And then we get a massive practical boost. Mars is in Capricorn, and that gives this whole Sagittarian vision its work boots.
Right.
This transit brings increased determination, self-reliance. It gives you the ability to actually pour your energy into a long-term goal.
So Sagittarius gives you the why.
And Mars in Capricorn provides the how. It ensures that your big, expansive optimism is grounded by a durable work ethic that's focused on real, tangible outcomes.
Okay, let's connect all of this to that StoryScope narrative you shared. For the listener who really thrives on those aha moments, the story of Mara and the archive is, it's the perfect analogy for what this new moon dynamic is demanding from us.
What's so fascinating is the opening imagery. The sources described the city learning to breathe again when the light softened and it whispered, "Begin again." Screens dimmed, doors opened slowly. The infrastructure itself, the sisters of the city, just recalibrated.
It wasn't an order from the outside.
No, it was an internal sensing that it was time for a change that perfectly mirrors this new moon. That feeling, that deep internal realignment is what's required right now.
And Mara, the character, she embodies that conflict of the moon square Saturn and Neptune perfectly. She was preserving these inherited narratives, these huge data stacks that were, and I'm quoting, stacked with expectations that no longer fit the world.
She was carrying the weight of the past's restrictions and its illusions, and then her colleague delivers the core realization of this whole deep dive. She says, "We've been maintaining stories that no longer guide us. Now they keep us small."
That idea that you're actively maintaining a story that's holding you back, that's exactly what the Saturn square forces you to confront. It's the moment you realize your loyalty to the past is keeping you from your future.
And the sources stress that the shift needed is not escape, but approach. You're not supposed to run from your history, but to approach it differently. The narrative even notes that the old, fractured transit lines are still visible. The past isn't gone.
But the optimism has to learn the name of the obstacle. You have to see the constraints, trace their edges, and then pivot.
And the way Mara achieved that clarity is so key. It was an honest conversation, which the source notes is a rare commodity, usually filtered through politeness or algorithms in her world. It was that raw, unfiltered moment that allowed her to release a limiting belief she held.
The belief of pretending not to care because caring just felt too dangerous.
Exactly. You see the whole transit arc in her story. the optimistic vision, the Saturnian constraint of the inherited archive, and then the Neptunian fog being lifted by that honest conversation.
It's powerful. But to give a balanced view, we have to talk about the really challenging transits that require our awareness, because facing reality is not easy.
No, it isn't. And we go back to that difficult new moon square Saturn and Neptune. As we said, this aspect demands you confront a reality you may have spent years avoiding. It's hard work.
The sources list some potential manifestations. What should you watch out for?
Confusion, a sense of really deep discouragement as those illusions you've held onto start to fade and the masks dissolve. Your core beliefs get challenged, and the sources say they may need to be entirely rewritten.
That's not a simple adjustment. That's transformation.
It's heavy lifting. And we also have specific warnings from the new moon quincunx, Uranus, and Sedna. A quincunx is an awkward angle. It forces a difficult adjustment. It can show up as internal restlessness or, external rebelliousness, that urge to just blow up your life because it feels restrictive.
And the mention of Sedna here feels significant.
It's a huge flag from the sources. Sedna often relates to deep-seated trauma or hidden truths. When you combine that with the erratic energy of Uranus, the risk of unexpected events goes way up. The sources specifically caution against deception, betrayal, and abandonment.
So you need to proceed with real awareness, with your eyes wide open about your partners and alliances.
Absolutely. But if you do all that heavy lifting, if you face the reality and the risks, the sources promise a major payoff. The new moon trine, Chiron and Eris is where we see the reward.
This is the moment where our efforts actually materialize.
Yes. This trine is the crucial payoff. You have Chiron, the wounded healer, trining the new moon, which speaks of self-acceptance. And then you have Eris, who's all about disruptive truth, also trining the new moon. That provides the mechanism.
So the reward is about overcoming that victim consciousness, shedding the small story that was keeping you safe, and gaining the confidence to take positive, assertive, and unapologetic action.
This is the moment the larger, more authentic narrative starts to write itself, backed by genuine conviction.
And the StoryScope resolution just perfectly encapsulates this. Mara leaves the restrictive archive, and she's carrying an unlabeled, unclassified data seed.
She chooses a step rooted in curiosity and her own conviction, not in inheritance or certainty. She chooses the unknown future over the familiar, limiting past.
So the systems recalibrate. The intention moves from routine to real, meaning-based action. We've unpacked this whole arc, from the expansive optimism in the morning, through that frustrating reality check at midday, and finally into this earned opportunity for courageous action.
And as Mara stood there, at her threshold, embracing the unknown, the source gives us one final, really provocative thought to sit with as you go forward.
What's that?
The future does not ask for certainty, only sincerity.
That really is the essential question to carry with you from this deep dive. What one brave, unclassified step can you take today toward the larger, more authentic story you want to guide your life? Thank you for sharing your source material for this deep dive. Until next time.